Most people spend years trying to solve the wrong problem, and they don't realize until everything finally breaks open at once. Today's guest works at the level beneath the symptoms, and by the end of this conversation, you'll understand why real transformation happens faster than anyone expects. Hi, and welcome to the U World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life health transformational coaches and spiritual entrepreneurs stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist, on a mission to empower coaches and entrepreneurs to amplify their voice, monetize their mission, and get visible. If you're ready to start attracting premium clients without chasing algorithms or hunting people down like a banshee on a mission, head over to coachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. It's the first step to building a business where your clients seek you out rather than you having to hunt them down. Today, we are chatting with Mark Scherer, PhD. Mark is a transformational coach known for helping clients create rapid, lasting shifts, often in a single session. With a PhD in transformational life coaching and leadership development and over 20 years of experience, Mark guides leaders and conscious professionals to dissolve the emotional patterns and subconscious beliefs that keep them stuck. As the creator of the Quantum Leap technique, he helps clients transform challenges at their root by shifting the language they use, the emotions they hold, and the beliefs they've unknowingly lived by. Instead of coping or managing symptoms, his work brings immediate clarity, emotional ease, and profound sense of personal power. Welcome to the show, Mark. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you for having me on here as well. And
So,
that was a mouthful you just said.
I have to exercise my jaw before I
There
do
you
these.
go.
So, what's the most significant thing, in your opinion, as individuals we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
Yeah, so the most important ways people can make an impact is they got to change themselves. Most everybody's trying to change everybody around them and not doing the work for themselves. But until we change our insides, nothing's going to change on the outside. So, except you can make yourself sicker, more worried, more anxious, more fearful when you're trying to live life that way. Um, so yeah, everything's it's a lesson in self mastery, and the only thing you can really control is your own body chemistry. And when you get control of that, then you'll notice the world's going to reflect your new way of being.
I love that you said body chemistry. So few people really catch on to the idea that we are biochemical, electrical
Machine.
beings,
Yep.
and our thoughts drive chemical reactions in our bodies. And a lot of times people are like, well, you got to get your head and your body connected. But what they're really saying is that you need to change the chemical processes that you're originating by thinking.
Yeah. Or that's the way most people do it. They say you got to change your thoughts to change your body chemistry. We're changing body chemistry to change thoughts. So we're
Oh,
so we're doing it the other way. Um, I and I've been involved with consciousness for 40 plus years now. Studied
mhm.
consciousness for, like I said, for over 40 years. Most everything I started with at first was you got to think positive and don't think negative. Everybody's heard that stuff, right? And for me, there was one more voice in my head trying to manage all the other voices, which was like somebody trying to herd cats. So over about the last 16, 17 years, I started working in this other way of doing things where we can change body chemistry in an instant, and it doesn't take much, right? Like if I was to give you a shot of tequila right now, like here's an imaginary shot of tequila. You have a shot of tequila, your thoughts change pretty quickly, right? You didn't have to think about the tequila, what it's going to do to you. You just change your chemistry, and their thoughts change. So the way we do stuff here is we show the person how to change their body chemistry first, and then everything else changes. And to me, our thoughts are like a channel we're listening to.
Mhm.
We're not, one of my teachers, he said he said psychology will never really work. And I said, well, why is that? He goes, because it's a study of the mind, and the mind doesn't exist. He goes, I'm like, okay, I hear you. And it took me a while to really think about that. But really, when you're sad, your thoughts are different than when you're happy. Pretty simple, right? So there's ways we can change our body, which changes thoughts in an instant. And as soon as you do, you have access to information at that frequency. Tesla, Einstein said, everything's frequency. When we began to really understand that everything's frequency, we really began to understand life. So that's what we're doing here, is showing people how to change the channel. Way easier than managing thoughts. Way, way, way
My
easier.
my daughter, when she was little, this my father-in-law who lived with us, um, had had kind of hinted about these sorts of things. And so he told me that if you smile, it changes your chemistry. You cannot be sad if you're smiling. It just like it's not possible. And so when she would get upset about something, we would make a game of like I really exaggerate the smile, and then she would
Right,
start laughing, and then it would just totally
right.
shift her perspective. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Those sorts of
That's quite a bit different than the way we're talking about it. But
okay.
there's four different things that are holding. If somebody has a repetitive pattern in place,
Hmm.
there's four things that hold the pattern into place. Those four things are shame, blame, guilt, and hate.
Uh-huh.
So rather than trying to move the pattern, we remove the glue, and then once you remove the glue, the pattern kind of falls apart. Which the thing about like you smiling or something, like you do that small thing. Well, most
Uh-huh.
people, if they're in their crap, right, if they're going to have to smile, they're going to have to go through. Like, I don't really feel like that, and the shame and the guilt
Mhm.
for doing it. So as soon as they do that, the shame starts to fall off. So that is one piece of kind of sort of what we're doing, but we're
Mhm.
going quite a bit deeper than that. And whenever somebody has a suppressed feeling inside of them, I mean, you can fake your way through it and smile, but at some point in time, you got to find what that suppression is, because whatever somebody suppresses becomes a lens upon which they view life. If they whatever they don't want to deal with inside themselves, if they got anger inside of them, they're going to see that's all they can see is anger. So eventually, you got to find out what's going on inside and shift that really quickly. And the system we have here that really does that. I mean, a lot of time we can shift people's we're reprogramming persons' neurological pathways in seconds or minutes. And we got neurologists studying what we're doing now, and we got papers came out in the European Scientific Journal. So when I first started doing this, people were telling me you can't do it the way you're doing it. I said, well, here's the results we're producing, and you can't be doing that. And now after whatever, I guess 4 or 5 years of Encompass Life doing this, now we have professionals going, oh my God, what you're doing here is really different. So very fortunate.
So can you kind of give me an idea how all that works? Because I'm struggling like with a framework for attaching this because this is so interesting and so different from
Yeah.
anything I've ever heard. So
Yeah, me too. Um, so you ever heard the story of Adam and Eve?
yeah.
Okay, like everybody, most people have.
Mhm.
So when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of what good and evil, right and wrong, right? That's when that's when shame showed up, and they became embarrassed and tried to cover themselves with a fig leaf and all this stuff. They realized they were naked, but and then they believed God kicked them out. They believed they were separate from God, right? So I'm gonna ask you this question. So, Jill, have you ever been somewhere where life isn't?
No.
Okay. Now, notice you have to pause and think about it. It's just not, it should be like an automatic answer. Like, oh, hell no, you can't be somewhere where life isn't. But most people will sit there and pause and let me think about that. When I was in the desert on a horse with no name, no, it's a joke. Anyway, when I was in the desert, I go, well, are you alive? Yeah. I go, well, so have you
No,
ever been
life is
somewhere where
there.
life isn't? Well, let me think. Did I see any life in the desert? I mean, like they'll ponder this stuff sometimes for minutes. And it's like, like, hello, it's impossible to be separate from life. Impossible. And so it's also impossible to be separate from God. But people have bought into this belief system that we are separate from God and we got to do something good enough to get back to God. And
Externalization.
yeah, and once we're in this, we accept that initial lie that we're separate, have to do something good enough to get back to God. Then that's where all pain, suffering, and disease comes from. So what we're doing, and whenever I heard the story of Adam and Eve, I was like, well, that sucks, man. God's an ass, man. Okay.
Frick.
And what a prick. Adam and Eve screwed up, and we're all screwed after that. And I remember when I was a kid and I heard that, I was like, man, this is some bullshit here, man. and
And
it
hell.
stuck with me. But as I started doing this work, I realized the same conditions that Adam and Eve get presented, I get presented hundreds of times a day.
Yep.
You're going to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or are you going to stay in unity consciousness? And there's a whole language of a fallen language, and it's a language of separation. And there's a language of unity. And when we speak the language of unity, our it's our brain begins to build new neurological pathways, and we have access to information that most people don't even realize exists. Most people are accessing information based on what they hate, and you can switch it to access information based on what you love. But most people compete on what they hate. And you think you're having trouble with your kids, let me tell you about mine. You think you're having trouble with money, let me tell you about my troubles. And
Mhm.
people compete on their complaining ability. Sucks, man. So there's a way to rewire the brain to have them compete on what they love in life. And when they do, all of a sudden, all these new neurological pathways are formed. So genius activation, intuition, wisdom, enthusiasm all show up.
I don't know if that.
Me too. Super fun.
It's a much better space to live in
Gotta
than
think
lack.
positive and don't think negative. How many times have I told you? Gotta think positive. Are you being negative right now? Bad girl, bad girl.
If we do it to ourselves,
Oh yeah, right. Yep,
because
for real.
good and bad don't actually exist. They're just labels.
Right.
They're
Well, we have the power of co-creation, so we can create an illusionary world in which they exist, and
right.
appear very real. And the results of living in good, bad, right, or wrong is conflict, strife, wars, jealousy, rage, anger. All those feelings. And but there's a way out of that, and it's really simple. Really simple.
So
Questions?
do share. I'm
What's that
waiting.
again?
I said I'm waiting. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So like that. So change your body chemistry. Ready?
Yep.
Just go. Oh wow. Say
Oh
oh.
wow.
Oh wow. Like way more expressive than you've ever been. Like super like way expressive.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
there you go. Now feel what happened with your body.
Yeah. I'm
What happened?
smiling and
Yeah.
my
Tingles.
relaxed.
Feel the little tingles start to show up in your body, right?
Mhm.
And every time somebody goes through a level of expression bigger than they've ever done before, it builds new neurological pathways. And the tingles you feel on your body when you did that, there's also tingles starting to occur inside your brain, building new pathways. So you're building new neurological pathways in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, I like that. I like that we can actually build new neurological pathways.
Yeah,
For the longest time, we were told, "Nope, your brain's done.
I
You're an
know, right?
adult, and it'll never change. Just stay
Yeah.
in those ruts."
One of our
We
one of
can
our
control you.
clients, she had to have her gallbladder taken out, and she got referred to us. I don't remember by who, but anyway, she does a class with us. Goes back to her doctor. Your gallbladder is perfectly healthy. So the doctor's like, "What did you do?" And she goes, "Hey, can you work with my husband? He's had really severe cognitive issues for 15 years." And I started work with him, and I'd ask him a question. He would just go, "I don't know. I can't remember," and just sit there and cry. I mean, like really, really far
Yeah.
down. He could maybe speak in 3 word sentences, and within a short period, and he couldn't. So she had to put a tracker on him. Where is he going? Um, anyway, I mean, all kind. Couldn't read, write, nothing. And within a year, he's reading, writing, driving to the store by himself, getting supplies from the store, coming home, helping her remember. No, he couldn't dress himself. He couldn't put his belt through his belt loop when I first started working with him. And most doctors, well, this is cognitive issues, and there's nothing you can do. Maybe we can slow it down a little bit, but there's no reversal. And he's reversed back to where he was maybe 10 or 12 years ago now. So
So fascinating. My dad's 89 and he has cancer. It's a minimal tumor and he's like he's more annoyed with the process than he is like most people are just like, oh, I've got cancer. It's the end of the world. I'm gonna die. And he's
where,
just like annoyed
yeah,
that they put a
where
catheter
was the
in.
tumor?
It's in the ureter between his kidneys or between his bladder and his kidney, and it's just one kidney. So they he went in for a surgery or for a biopsy, thinking it was going to be a needle biopsy, and then came out with a catheter, and then he was annoyed. He's like,
Mm.
this is
Pissed.
just really annoying.
Uh,
And so he's like he's always very positive. It's like I'm gonna get down and we'll talk to the doctor and he's gonna do whatever the things are that he has to do. But he's just like, yeah, we're just gonna do this thing. I'm gonna die of something, but I'm not gonna worry about it today. He's just like the greatest attitude about stuff. And his marbles are all there. He still drives himself. He lives by himself, but he's part of a community. He does stuff. It's just like I think that of keeping your brain going
yep,
and just acknowledging, yeah, it's something that's happened. It's a puzzle. It's not a problem. So we can, put the puzzle together and we're going to collect data and we're going to make a plan and we'll work our plan. And if that plan doesn't go exactly as we intend, well, we'll just adjust instead of like, it's got to be this way and I better be afraid and
all right.
all the things
Ty-
that can happen
Type
to
A
us.
personality.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, it's,
Well,
he used to say he was a
glad he's
carrier
doing
of
well.
stress rather than.
Glad he's doing well. Yep. So we've worked with people with cancer as well. Had quite a bit of
Mhm,
success with that, and also Alzheimer's, dementia. Um, we're working with some people with ALS now too. But
mhm,
when people come in with health issues or they'll come in with money issues, but what this system we have, it works on all areas of a person's life simultaneously and exponentially. And how is it doing that? Because the person's changing their relationship with life. And most people, um, how do you feel about life? Well, life's really hard. It's like a turd on a bicycle tire. Same old crap keeps coming around again and again. They have all these little metaphors about life, and they've been living those metaphors as if they're real. They created them that way. But this is a way of changing a person's experience with life. For once they do, everything changes.
So how do you work with people? Is it one-on-one? Is it groups? Is
Groups
it
mostly. We have there's a variety of classes we do. We have some in
Mhm,
person. We do a class called From How to Wow. You mentioned that it's a 3-day class,
mhm,
and the class is from how question mark to wow exclamation point. And a lot of people will have great ideas about doing something in their life, but they get stuck in the how am I going to do it, and can
mhm.
spend years in the how, and it just bogs them down. So this is a systematic way of producing breakthrough results over and over again. And it happens, you can do it in seconds. So we have that class. We have a class called Body Electronics. That's a 4.5-day class. And then also I have a university where people can take our classes and get certified in transformational leadership development and our transformational life coaching. They get their masters. They get their masters through by taking classes with us, masters or PhD. We partner with the university. So
So that they can in turn help other people.
yeah, and
I
we're
love the
bringing
pay it
people on in
forward.
house. I mean, when I started this company, it was way bigger than just me. I mean, the system's very different, and so getting people trained in this, my goal is to have 30, 40, 50, 100 people doing what I'm doing, so
Mhm.
we can really take it out and spread across and really work with people. Once people get a taste of what we're doing here, about 60% of the people who get to taste with us end up doing a full year and a half project with us. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Very fortunate. We have a lot of doctors we're working with. we got a symposium coming out next this spring, this coming spring. They've got about 6 or 7 doctors speaking about what changes they've noticed in their lives and what changes has happened with their patients since they started using our system. So that's going to really take off. I got 3 books coming out in 2026. So I've been busy getting all this information out. It's about time.
Yeah, I love that you're addressing the medical community. I
Yeah.
think I really feel for doctors because
Um,
after the pandemic, people are like they're questioning doctors more than they're connecting it with the system. The system is broken. The
right.
doctors, I think the doctors, they get into this profession because they genuinely want to help heal people, but they've
Right.
been hamstrung by these monstrosities that we call the medical system, so that they really can't.
They
And
can't. It's
people
a
like
top-down hierarchical system.
and they've
Um,
spent so much money
money.
getting educated that it's they're just trapped in these.
Yeah. So they. I mean, this is going to may sound weird, but they trade truth for dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they
So
have to,
they have to.
unless somebody like you comes along. And I've met some other people that are kind of in the same, not doing exactly what you're doing, but they're working with the medical community because they want the medical community to have more access to other alternative ways that really are helping people get
Hmm.
amazing results and turning some of these situations around for people. You know,
Yeah. When doctors first started showing up for our classes, I was a little on the terrified because I was like, oh, well, these guys are going to come in and be disruptors. But we had a doctor come in from who had heard me speak in Houston, and she had unbeknownst to us, she had autoimmune disease for 11 years,
mhm,
and when she from the talk, she signed up for one private coaching session with one of our coaches, and within like I choose to know, it was like a week or 2 days. I mean, it was a very short period of time, but it was like under a week. 60% of her symptoms went away after with that one session. And she was Western medicine doctor, but was also naturopath with fundamental medicine. She was doing chronic healing, everything to try to heal herself.
mhm.
And so once those symptoms went away, she called us and go, "Hey, whatever you're doing, put me down for everything." So she's really started spreading it to the medical community, and then other ones are as well. So it's really I'm very fortunate, and we have therapists coming in as well, and we have people championing us with therapists also.
I love that. I love that the shift is happening and people are
Yep,
getting healed and finding
yep,
relief from, it's mental pain, but it's also physical pain and traumas that you go through in life. And just to have something that's really simple and non-invasive,
yep.
but really effective.
Yeah, well, whenever I started doing this work, I studied, actually, I studied consciousness about 40 years, but it was all that positive, negative stuff until about 16 years ago.
Mhm,
And had a speech impediment as a child. If I said a word incorrectly, I would get hit or yelled at. So my
mhm.
speech impediment turned into a stuttering issue. For me to get up and speak in front of a group of people, I mean, I would sweat through a shirt to speak for 3 minutes, terrified to speak up in front of a group of people. I'd been taking allergy medicine for 30 plus years, wore glasses for 37 years. I had skin conditions the doctors couldn't heal, a whole bunch of other stuff going on. And when I started taking these classes, within the first class, my allergies went away. My vision healed within a week. The skin conditions healed, within a week or two. I had tumors in my throat. I coughed and spit those out, and I went from a stutterer to clear speech in under 10 minutes and being able to speak in front of a group of people.
That's
So
amazing.
I don't know. It was, yeah, that's what I said. I was like, oh my gosh. You know, somebody would tell me 20 years ago, hey, Mark, you're going to be a public speaker and speak on love, God, and like, I really would have given them fingers, man. Like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm doing this. And I'll tell you, on the other side of what you fear the most is where your life really exists. So, you know, and this system will get you through that very quickly.
Yeah. Wow. And so people can uh find a way to work with you over on your website?
Yeah, or you could email qlt@encompasslife.com. Just QLT at encompasslife.com and mention this show. That way we know it comes from you, and we'll send you a thank you for anybody that comes through. And or you can reach out to me, Mark at encompasslife.com as well.
I'm writing it down.
What's that again?
I said I'm busy writing it down.
Gotcha.
Um,
And I'll send you some stuff. I'm marketing people send you some things as well, so you can put those up on the show.
Perfect, perfect. And they can find you and find access to the variety of things that you do offer and how they can work with you over at encompasslife.com so
Yes,
that
ma'am. And on
there's
social media, we're the Quantum Leap Technique. We're in Instagram, all the things. But there's a Quantum
mhm.
Leap Technique at Instagram, Facebook. I choose to know. I guess I choose to know everything. I'm just. I guess somebody handling all that stuff. I'm new to doing business over the internet. So this is very unusual, different way of me for me to do business.
So maybe I should cover that part. Your courses are available to people online and you do
Yeah,
work with
and
people
online and in
online.
person. We have a class called Abracadabra.
Mhm,
Abracadabra means I create with my words.
mhm,
That's like let's say like $177 class, and it's delivered by a live person online. And then we have the
mhm.
basics, applied basics, and then we get into the curriculum where people can train to become a life coach. But we have a lot of people who are taking all of our classes who have no intention of actually taking money as a coach. But all of life is actually coaching. If you're married, you're coaching. If you have kids, you're coaching. If you own a business, you're coaching. If you choose to advance yourself in a business, you're coaching. No matter it's all coaching. You're gonna go buy a car, it's coaching. So it's really um, the coaching is being able to taking the perfect action at the perfect time is what we're doing here.
Yeah, and helping others do the
So
same. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
you're welcome. Very nice to meet you, and maybe I'll run into you in Idaho.
If you travel down here, you might.
I might do that. Awesome. Well, Jill, thank you so much for having me on the show. And this is a couple days before Thanksgiving, so have a happy and blessed Thanksgiving.
You too. You too. To learn more about Mark and his free, or not his free training, but to learn about the trainings that he offers, please visit encompasslife.com and we'll be sure to put all the links in the show notes below. Thanks for tuning in with us today to the U World Order Showcase podcast. If you're ready to amplify your voice, monetize your mission, and start attracting premium clients, your next step is simple. Head to thecoachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. Be sure to join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.